This is Rich, and we're on the final video of our series here. I'm not going to complete out the standard CRUD actions that you would expect, the updating, deleting. The main purpose of this video was to really focus on routes and just to review once again. Remember, every time a user needs to interact with your application, they have to start at a route. So whether it's a link, whether it's a form submission, they have to go to a route, which is a pairing of the verb and the URL, and then we create a helper for that pairing, which you use to reference in any of your views that you create in Rails. So always, it really helps to think about it in that manner and say, okay, I want the user to click this button, so let's start at the route, go to the controller, and so forth. And then the other thing is to really look at how Rails helps you and follow these conventions. So all of these routes that I created here, we could actually get rid of all of this and get the exact same thing by just typing resources posts. By doing that, it is actually going to create the standard set of RESTful routes that you would get with a resource. And so you can see it's actually created the same routes that we had before, plus a few extras. It's got the index create new. We've also got an edit one. We've got update. We've got a destroy. And you can even customize this. If you're not going to use all of them, you can restrict it by saying something like only, sending an array, and then saying I only want to have the index and the show. We're not actually going to let the user create anything or destroy anything. And you can see here when I run the routes again, we've only got our 2 routes in this case. It's very good practice to not create a route that you do not intend to use in your application. So that's something I would highly recommend you use. It will actually make sure that you keep your application very clean. There is actually a blog post which I'll link to that talks about, it's actually by the creator of Rails, who says that he does not make any kind of custom controller actions whatsoever. He follows only the pattern of those RESTful actions. And so anytime you want to do anything, just think about it in the sense of, am I listing something? Am I listing a collection or an individual thing? Am I creating? And it helps you keep your application very clean. It makes it very scalable, very easy for other developers to come in and know what's going on. So that's the big takeaway there. The other thing I just wanted to show you is that I've also been obviously creating these controller actions manually. I do recommend you actually do that in your apps, but a good reference point is to look at when Rails actually allows you to create this thing called a scaffold. And so let's just create like a user scaffold, and we just send in user, and you'll see all of the things it bakes in for you, and it will create a lot of things that you might not end up using. You might not have custom JavaScript against your thing or custom styles. It's even creating JSON builders here. But what it does create that's interesting to look at is if we look in the controllers, users controller, you can see it's done a lot of what we had already done throughout this course, and it has actually created these actions. And you can even see a common pattern for when you create, you send in those user params. Remember, coming from that using the strong parameters pattern there, and then it's saying if it saves, and it actually has different formats. You can respond in HTML or you can respond in JSON. And you've got all sorts of things. They also use a good dry, so DRY, do not repeat yourself, or don't repeat yourself. So it knows that in front of these specific actions, show, edit, update, destroy, because we're dealing with an individual post or user in this case, that we already know we're going to need that user to do something with them, it actually just goes ahead and puts it all into a single method that it does once. So the set user method down here, it's just doing user equals user find params ID. So instead of placing that in all 4 of these actions, it's actually doing it as a before action. So that's just another common practice. So there's all sorts of things you can get out of this scaffold just to kind of see a good way to do things. But I do find it helpful to go ahead and do it yourself. You might have some areas you want to customize. There might be other things that you need to run for given actions. So and then it actually also created all those actions for you as well, the standard actions. And it does go into partials, which we're not covering here, but you can see in our new forms. So instead of the original new form I had, where I had the form in line inside the template, their version of it, they actually use a partial, so that actually goes up to our form, which is prefixed with an underscore to show it's a partial, and then this form will then basically be included into that new new template. And the reason they do that is, again, to not repeat themselves. They use that same form in their edit view. So in the editing view, they render that same form, and that form can handle, it knows, okay, was I creating something new, or am I editing a form of form? So it's able to just kind of handle all of that together. So there's some more complicated things in here. You can review it. It allows to show errors. So if the user is trying to update something or create a new form, it will send errors back. But yeah, so that's mainly the thing, that the two things that will help. You can look at a scaffold to just see what sort of things Rails does for you. But hopefully this has been really useful in understanding a lot of things going on underneath the hood when you're creating your new applications. So thank you very much. If you enjoyed these videos, please go ahead and like. Feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next series.